Welcome back to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. My name is Nick Hancock. I am your host and USCA and UK Athletics certified coach. And I am here with
Faye Johnson, UK Athletics certified coach and personal trainer.
We did it, Faye. We did the intro correctly.
Absolutely.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
I just decided to condense it. Just that's what it is. Full stop.
Yeah. It's nice to see you, Faye. It's nice to talk to you. I mean, we talk to each other anyway, but it's nice to be talking to you again in a podcast context because we've had a little bit of a break. There's been a lot going on for both of us. Life has its trials and tribulations, and as anybody who's been listening to this podcast know, my wife's health issues have been a feature of our lives. We're in a pretty good place with that at the moment, though.
Yeah, great.
As you know, so
yeah.
I mean, to the point where she's sort of back on the treadmill herself and trying to get her running going again. She had to go for some targeted radiotherapy, and as part of that, they had to do a very high definition MRI to sort of do the planning, and they did say to her at the beginning of the day, just to sort of warn you, when we do this this MRI, it can often show more cancer, which it did. It showed 2 more tumours on top of the 2 that she was in there to be treated for, and they treated all 4. But she did ask them, what about the other ones? Why wouldn't you treat the other ones? You're going to do these new ones. What about the other ones? And they said, what other ones? She said, well, the other ones. They said, you don't have any other ones. You originally had, and we never knew this, so 17 lesions, tumours, whatever word you want to use, in her brain, and now she's only got 4, and they've treated all 4 of them. So it's been quite a groundbreaking few weeks for us, really, isn't it? It's
absolutely
but
great news.
So that's kind of been a big thing in our lives recently. What's been going on with you, Faye?
So running wise, I last weekend, 2 Saturdays ago, I did man versus horse.
You did?
Race, which I have not done since 2019. So basically a decade ago. in COVID times, it's basically 10 years ago. It was funny actually, because I went through a series of I'm not doing it, I am going to do it, I can't do it. It really felt like a massive thing. It's just, I think because last time I did it in 2019, I was running the best I've ever run. I won the race in 2019, but equally I was 5 years younger, and all the other stuff that's come about in the last 5 years. And I then came to the point where I was like, I just want to run and have a good day out. And that's exactly what I did. And it was great, to be fair. The weather was perfect. It wasn't too hot, but it didn't rain. I remembered the course as it's a great course. It's beautiful. Obviously, the uniqueness of running alongside horses, and the great mix of people you get doing it as well. I finished 7th lady, and the top 7 we finished within 10 minutes of each other, so it was quite close.
It was,
It was a good race, and some great performances from people. But it was just good to do it and to remind myself. And it had actually been probably 12 months since I'd done a marathon. So it was last summer that I last did a marathon. Everything else has been half marathon or shorter. So it was good, and I enjoyed it. That's what I've been up to recently.
Yeah, well, you had a good build up to it, and you finally did the sub 20.
Oh, and that,
when I'd been bugging you about.
So I wanted to do a sub 20 at Monmouth Park Run, and then I had not planned that at all. Rocked up and managed to do, I think, 1947. And it didn't feel like 1947, which for me is the bonus. It felt uncomfortably comfortable, is the way I'd term it. I was uncomfortable, but I felt in control. And when I was looking at the time, I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. This is quicker than normal, but it felt good, and I was chuffed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good.
Well, yeah, it was part of a good training block for man versus horse, or Fey versus horse, as I was calling it.
Yes.
And yeah, thoroughly deserved. So yeah, yeah. But that means now you've got to train faster in your various
I
interval
know,
zones.
exactly. Yeah, there's always a price to pay.
Indeed, indeed.
And
Good,
what about
good.
your running, Nick? What about yours?
Yeah, going all right. I think sort of picking up on previous episodes, I was training for UTS 100k, but I pulled out because I just had a few weeks in a row where I got a throat infection, something else, twisted my ankle one week. It was like 4 weeks in a row where I just couldn't do any long runs and get consistency. So I thought, right, just call it a bad job, draw a line under the sand. I already had Lakeland 50 in my diary and CCC in my diary. I thought, right, just kind of bring things back down and sort of focus on them. So that's what I've been doing. I still went up to UTS. It was a great weekend, some great performances. Got to see Mark Derbyshire just as he was coming over Snowdon at 9 o'clock in the morning on the 100. Saw Andy Berry, who's been a previous guest on here, finishing. I involuntarily volunteered. I was with Sharon, the MC,
Yeah.
telling her who was kind of running down the road. She was calling over the microphone, and it was brilliant. And I just, I don't want to sort of come across as some sort of UTMB fanboy, because they have had their shortcomings in the past. But for those people who hate UTMB, what I saw at UTS, it was all about the runners. I mean, that whole kind of race village, people coming across the finish line, it was just a big celebration of running, and the volunteers out there and stuff. It was a really good weekend.
Great.
But yeah,
Awesome.
in terms of my running, I'm putting in some good training at the moment. I ran a 5 miler on the weekend, a road 5 miler, quite a hilly road 5 miler actually, and I managed to run a PB 29:39, I think it was, which is just under 6 minute mile pace,
Brilliant.
with
Yeah.
a big old hill in it. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with that. Been putting in some good sessions. Oh, since we I think recorded the last episode, I can't remember now, but I ran Newport Marathon. I ran a PB there.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
don't think
remember.
we've recorded since Newport Marathon. No.
No. So yeah, I got a PB there. I got 2:53, and I did that on no specific marathon training. It'd
I
be wrong
think
of me to say no
your
training.
words on social media were, I woke up feet and I felt cute, so I did the Newport
Yeah.
Marathon. And I was like, of course.
Yeah, no, it went pretty well. I sort of blew up
Yeah.
in the last 3 miles. I did lose about 4 minutes, but it was good enough for good for age. And I've actually decided that my sort of big goal next year is going to be to try and do a championship running, a championship time of 2:39.
Nice.
See if I can do it.
Yeah.
Just going to see if I can do it. I think I can do it. I need to believe that I can do it. Otherwise, I might as well give up now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
At 42, will I be 42? I'll be 42 then. I haven't decided which marathon I'm going to do it at. I'm looking at. I definitely won't be doing Newport again because it was dull. The second time I've done it, and it was long.
It's a shame they've changed the course, to be fair, because it used to take in some, let's say, more interesting routes and views than 2 laps round the city centre. So I think it's a bit of a shame, but yeah.
Well, it was still. You went through the city centre a little bit, and it was still out on the Gwent levels. But it
Yeah,
was
but
two
it
laps
didn't.
of the boring bit of the Gwent levels. There was just nothing there.
No, exactly. I mean, yeah, perhaps not very inspiring as courses
No.
go.
I mean, if you don't really care and you just want to go and do a time, great one to go and do
Exactly.
a time
Yeah.
on. It was so flat,
Yeah. Very
like the
flat.
previous course was.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, no, running's going all right. I've got Lakeland at the end of next month. I've been up and recce'd the first 25, well, actually the first sort of 30 miles of it, which has got most of the elevation in. So yeah, I feel pretty good about Lakeland. I feel pretty good about my fitness at the moment, and then I've got
Great.
CCC at the end of August, which is going to form part of the family
Yeah.
van adventure. And yeah, I guess my sort of big news is on a sort of a running coaching front is it's very rare that you find a running coach that actually does this full time. Most have got you know day jobs, and I've always had a day job. Not that I've ever considered my running to be a side hustle, just the same as you, Faye. I don't think it's a disservice to the people that
Yeah, that's yeah,
that pay our
it's
services to call it a
I
side
always
hustle.
I always think it's for me it's a passion that I
Mm,
can't not do, but
mm,
unfortunately for whatever reason I have to have a day job to pay the bills. But absolutely, it's we do it because we love it. Otherwise
mm,
we wouldn't put that extra time in, I don't think. And I hope
yeah.
that shows with the people that we work with. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, I am actually going full time with it as of September. So yeah, I'm quite excited about that. I've yeah, sort of really enjoyed the journey of maximum mileage over the last 3 years, and I just love doing what I do. And with everything that's happened, with Ali and um, and her health and stuff, our sort of view on life has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, don't really want to be stuck in the corporate life anymore. So I want to dedicate my life to helping people with something I'm just so bloody passionate about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
excited, nervous, all at the same time. But yeah, so yeah, full time coaching as of September, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Coaching tip of the week, Faye. Let's do one of
Yes.
them.
So, uh, I know this is an unpopular topic at the moment, but weather. Some people, some people are experiencing warmer temperatures and some sunshine. I know there's a real contrast across the country at the moment, uh, but it is warming up, and we are set to go into a bit of a warm spell. I think over the next kind of 2 or 3 weeks. So
Woohoo!
we were thinking, I know, I can't wait. I absolutely I love the heat. I love running in the heat. Anyway, it's an unpopular opinion, but yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
I think it's an opinion that is divided because
yes.
I'm in the I like wet and cold camp.
Oh, I don't. Do you know, if I could live in shorts and t-shirt all year round, for in nice weather, I'd be there.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. Having said that, we've had so much bad weather for so
Yeah.
long now that actually I'm really really embracing the whole warm weather when we get it
Yes,
situation because
absolutely.
I want to be a better runner in heat, particularly as I've got two big races in the summer this year. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
let's
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
yeah. So Faye, it is that time of year where
Yeah.
things are starting to warm up, and I hear it every year. And I think I've put a post on Instagram, and I talk to athletes about it every year, where people start going, "Oh God, that run was so hard. It was so hot out there." And every year, I find myself saying to people, "Okay, slow down."
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it is sort of as simple as that. I mean, and the reason being is because when the temperature does go up, what happens is that our heart has to work harder because it's got to send blood to other processes like the skin to help with the cooling process, sweat, all that sort of stuff. It actually takes blood for the blood to be pumped around the body. So it's got to be taken away from the working muscles. And as you take blood away from the working muscles, you've got less oxygen to use as a fuel source, and therefore your body starts to struggle a bit more. And you will find, because your heart is having to work harder to do all of these extra processes, is that your heart rate will go up, even though,
the effort appears not to be any harder than normal.
Well,
in the sense of your
yes,
output, if you feel like
yeah,
let's do it, like we were saying before we recorded, if you normally run a 10-minute mile, feels good, feels comfortable. It's 25 degrees outside. It's quite humid. It's about, I don't know, 3:00 in the afternoon, and you've gone out for a run. That 10-minute mile is going to feel a lot harder for the reasons you've just described. The extra demands on the body, it's going to feel harder. And as a result, okay, you could power through if you so choose, but it may have a detrimental effect, and it will certainly not make you feel very good. So it's thinking about slowing down, and that it's okay to slow down.
Yeah, 100%. So if you've got an easy run, if your easy run is today and it's 25 degrees outside, and actually, I mean, I don't think it's quite that at the moment, but when the sun comes out, it can feel pretty warm. And that 10-minute mile that you were doing 2 weeks ago when it was, or even on Saturday when it was 12 degrees.
Yeah.
It might need to be a 12-minute mile today, because
absolutely,
if you just stay in that easy kind of zone, you're going to need to slow down.
And also have a think about what you're wearing. Obviously, don't go inappropriate and run naked. I'm not saying that, but think about what you're wearing. Wear a hat. I know not everybody loves wearing a hat, but wear a hat. It really makes a difference. Pop some sun cream on, and think about if you can perhaps move the time that you run, because many people do run after work, and sometimes that can be the hottest time of the day. 5:00 can be absolutely sweltering if it's been a hot day. So if there's any way that you can run later in the evening or run before work, that can make a difference, and perhaps you could get more out of a session because it's a bit cooler, particularly if you're doing intervals or
100%.
hills. If you can do that earlier in the day or later in the day, that will really make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you're talking about needing to do speed work, if it's a warm day, try and do it early in the morning is the best time, because that's the coolest part of the day. Make sure you fuel beforehand. It doesn't have to be anything particularly fancy. Half a banana, a little bit of chocolate, a gel, whatever it might be. But yeah, that's a great shout. And on the hat, that's a good segue.
It is.
It is a good segue to just give a little shout out to Ugoku Projects. Lovely trail hats. I'm not actually wearing one right now, which is a rarity, but I've got my little collection over there. I love Ugoku hats. They are made in the UK, very small family business. I actually coach Daryl, who's the owner of Ugoku. He's a lovely bloke, and they make beautiful hats, all hand designed. And little shout out for Ugoku, because they are fantastic hats. And as I always say, fuck CL. Ugoku hats are far better. They are lovely hats. So thank you, Daryl, for making sure that we've got our hats. And if anybody's listening and wants to go and buy one, ugokuprojects.com, I think it is, or if you just Google Ugoku Projects, UGOKU, I'll put a link in the show notes as well, and you can use code maximum10 for 10% off.
Yeah.
Faye, today's episode, we interviewed Sim and Jen Benson, authors of Smart Running, from Vertebrate Publishing. Great book. We will talk all about it, but it was lovely having them on. And unless you've got anything else, should we get into it?
Let's get into the episode.
Cool. It's good to be back. Hi, Jen and Sim. How are you doing?
Hi. Yeah, good, thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, no, we've got Jen and Sim Benson on, authors of a few books, actually. I mean, we're going to probably talk about one specific book today, a new one, which, as I was saying kind of before we started recording, I had actually bought purely off my own back. Like the look of it, followed. I saw that it had come out, and Vertebrate Publishing, who your publishers are, reached out to me after I'd finished reading it, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to interview you guys. So I didn't hate the book at all.
Good to hear. Good start.
Yeah, good timing.
Yeah, no, we'll come on to the book, but Jen and Sim, for kind of my listeners, mine and Faye's listeners, who are you?
Yeah, we've been writing books for about 10 years now. I think it's 10 years since our first book, Wild Running, came out, and that was kind of a big step for us. We both stopped doing other jobs and lived wild for a year, kind of working out how to make writing a full-time job, and have since written about 10 books, mostly kind of guidebook style books, but then the opportunity to write this one, Smart Running, came along, and for me it's like we both have differing areas of passion and expertise, and that kind of came together nicely, and we'll talk about that a bit more later on. But for me, I started off as a biomechanics specialist podiatrist in the NHS and in private practice, so a lot of runners doing that, as you can imagine. And then I went on and did a master's in sport and exercise medicine, again specialising in distance runners, moving up a bit to kind of knees and hips and things, and then currently doing a PhD in more kind of the psychology, philosophy side of running. So I've moved all the way up from the feet to the head now. And running has always been an absolute passion for me, and I'm just fascinated by all of it, really. So that's where the book came from for me.
Yeah, I mean, not much to add. Like we've both run for a long time. We sort of met working in a climbing shop, but it was sort of partly to do with the running that we met. So we've been running and racing and going on adventures for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, something like that. And the Smart Running, which is the sort of the book that's out recently, is basically an accumulation of everything we've learned and stuff over that time, really.
Yeah. And you're both athletes yourselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
We both run and race, sort of everything from like park run to 100 milers. So
I've never done a park run, but I did do the arc.
You have done a park run.
I did the junior park run, but no, I've never.
Well, you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah. I did do the arc this year, so.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Which is fun, yeah.
Which one, the 50 or the 100?
100, yeah.
100.
First 100.
Okay.
It was a good one, though.
Yeah. And how did you get on?
Yeah, it was good. Finished it, which was the main objective. Walked a lot of it, but no, it was brilliant. Loved it. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I went down to support. I had 3 people running it myself. 250, 2 in the 50s and 1 in the 100, and I just came away from that race with just a real magical feeling about it. And I know it's been a bit controversial recently with UTMB taking it over, but Fergie and Jane are still, as I was saying to Fergie, yes, there's 4 new letters above the door, but it's still the same old pub with the still same landlords, and and they want it to, they want to keep the atmosphere and everything. So
yeah, I'm sure it'll stay a very special race, won't it?
Yeah, I think with those guys at the helm, absolutely.
It's such a cool trail as well, isn't it? Like the running is
beautiful.
And Cornwall in the winter is just amazing as well, isn't it? It's like the best place to go in the winter.
Yeah.
Oh, you had a good year for the weather and the year before, because previous years it's not been so kind. It was a really good one. Okay, great. And sort of you've obviously got that background, particularly Jen with your your PhD and biomechanics background. You've obviously seen a lot of runners over the year in that respect. Either of you kind of in the coaching realms?
Yeah, we both coach.
Yeah, I've got the UK Athletics coach qualification, and Jen has the
I did the USCA.
one.
I kind of
Cool.
wanted to go more into the ultra side of things, and we coach mostly. I don't know why, but mostly mums we coach. Which is
Absolutely.
lovely. I love
think
it.
that, and I think that's a great thing, because often me and Nick have this conversation, and, the types of people that we coach come from every single walk of life. And generally they are just like me and you, who basically love running, want to push themselves, challenge themselves, but need that helping hand to balance all those many elements of life that we find ourselves working with on a daily basis. And they're the people that I think they're the best to work with. I wouldn't want to be working with, full-time athletes, because they're boring, because all they do is train. They train, they sleep, they eat, they repeat. Whereas, normal people, as if we're going to term it like that, they've got all the fantastic and challenging aspects of life to go with it. So yeah,
I think we all find our niches, don't we? I mean, I pretty much only work with parents, really, and the people I work with that aren't parents are still kind of, like me, in their 40s, 30s, 40s, full-time jobs, that kind of stuff. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's really interesting. It's a nice, we don't have a huge number of coaching clients, because as self-employed people, we do lots of things, but the coaching, the coaching's really fun, and it's nice being able to sort of have the time to really sort of talk to and coach the people that we do. It's nice.
It's really exciting, especially with people that have got into mostly ultra running, to be honest, like after kids, and when a lot of them never really ran before, and then they discover often these amazing strengths that they've got, and it's just so exciting, isn't it, when they're like, you see them start achieving stuff they never thought was possible. And as a mum myself, coming out the other side of having young kids, it's really nice to be able to share that journey with them, and kind of be on the phone to them at 2 a.m. when they're halfway around a backyard ultra or something. It's pretty exciting. So enjoying that side of things as well.
It's good as well, because there's a whole other group of people who have questions and perspectives and things, and so they throw questions at us that we wouldn't necessarily have thought about, and hasn't necessarily come up in our own running, which is great, because it means we go off down another rabbit hole of research, or and then find out more, and it's good. It's sort of, I like that.
You're absolutely right. With coaching, you're always learning, and whether that's down to the person, the individual that you're working with, or a particular experience they've had, or a question they come with, like you say, you're always thinking, researching, learning something different, aren't you?
Yeah, very much.
I'm kind of thinking outside the box as well sometimes. I have a little bit of a catchphrase. Sometimes the science can go fuck itself, because actually sometimes you've got to think outside of the science to think, well, it's that art of coaching, isn't it, versus the science of coaching. It's you got to problem solve sometimes and think, right, what would kind of I do in this situation, particularly when it's something completely different. Backyard ultras are a great example. They're so kind of new, and the limits of that are being explored every time one happens. It's there isn't enough research sometimes to go behind something like that. So yeah.
Well,
let's. I was going to say, let's talk about research, because we'll start moving on to the book, because I think, sort of, if you don't mind, this is how I would sort of explain the book to somebody who said, well, what is the Smart Running book? And for me, I thought it was a really good bridge between, if you were a newer runner, for example, and we get bombarded, particularly from our smartwatches, VO2 max, like, I need to improve my VO2 max because my watch is telling me to. And the amount of people, you go, well, do you know what VO2 max actually is? And they go, no, I haven't got a clue. It's just a number that comes up on my watch. And I think your book is a really good kind of segue from taking that little world to, and lots of other terms that get bandied around, not just VO2 max, but so many other things that, people can actually open your book and go, right, so what is VO2 max? And you put it in a way where it's pretty easy to understand, but it comes with a nice little kind of degree of the science behind it as well. which I also think, just from for me as a coach, I've actually used your book a couple of times in the last few weeks to actually go, well, here's a really good description of the thing I'm sort of trying to talk to you about, one of my athletes, for example. So I think you kind of you sort of cross that bridge from the simplistic world, or where people might not quite understand, to actually even to the people that are pretty experienced in some of this, that can actually help to then explain it back to the people who need it explaining. So that was my sort of thought of it. I mean, you cover so much in the book, don't you? It's kind of everything.
Yeah,
everything running.
We tried, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good to hear.
Yeah, so that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, I guess that's exactly what we wanted it to do, really. And yeah, I mean, the science is so fascinating, but it is often quite inaccessible, whether that's simply because you don't have access to the journals, or because it's written in an academic way. And I think, as someone who spent a lot of time kind of in the journals, and then trying to turn that into things like magazine articles, and disseminate it in a way that's interesting and accessible and stuff, I really wanted to get that across. So thank you. That's nice to know that worked.
Yeah. Faye, did you want to fire some of your questions?
No, I just think, as Nick mentioned around the book, I think it's so nice to, like you say, bring all the elements of running together, because they are so interlinked. And the amount of terminology and things that are about nowadays, it can very easily put people off of the activity in general. It can become quite overwhelming. And I know I have this comment from people quite frequently when they start off with me. They see themselves as not being a proper runner, and it's a fascinating term that I often hear people say. They're like, I'm not really a proper runner because I've only done X, Y, and Z, or I'm not a proper runner because I've only been running for 2 years. And I think it's very easy for people to psych themselves out because of all the many things that are out there. When you were writing this book, I think Nick's hit the nail on the head. You've made it really accessible, but really informative. How do you approach that, whether it was with writing the book or with people you're coaching, around, I suppose, setting their own personal expectations and helping them to stay within their own self, I guess, because it is very easy to be overridden by other people and other things, I guess.
Yeah, I think that self-belief, trusting yourself and how you're feeling, and is so important and so difficult. It's so difficult to get away from all the crap, isn't it? All the your watch is telling you whether you're ready to do something. It's telling you whether you slept well or not, and somewhere in there is the reality of how you're feeling. And we always coach using RPE, because sometimes, to start with, people do struggle a bit with that. So you can use, in the book we've just brought in, the breathing, how's your breathing, the chalk test, that kind of thing, and linking that with RPE, just because right at the beginning it can be hard to put a number on how hard you feel like you're working.
Yeah.
But we're actually really good at it. The research shows that we're really good at, if we put a number on how hard we're working, that does link really well with our heart rate for that effort and things. So it is something, our interoception, our ability to know how hard we're working, is really good. And obviously that brings everything in. That brings in whether we've slept well, that brings in whether we're well fueled, brings in whether we're coming down with a cold. So it's all those things. And the watches and things try to, use these kind of big algorithms to tell us these things. And actually it's never anywhere near as good as what's up here, is it?
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I think just getting people to trust. Yeah. So just getting people to trust themselves and stop listening to Instagram, stop listening to the watch for a bit, and just go how do I feel? I know what's best for me. How do I feel? How hard am I working? How tired do I feel? Just it's empowering once you get through to somebody that they have everything they need. The watch is good for knowing how far you've run, how much vert you've done, that kind of thing. But it's beyond that. It's not brilliant for telling you anything. That I think HRV is one of the few things that, used correctly, first thing in the morning, once you've established your baseline, what's right for you, what's normal for you, can be helpful, but whether it's any more helpful than waking up in the morning and deciding how you feel is, it's still debatable, isn't it? So yeah, I think it's getting people to trust themselves, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I share a lot of the sentiment there, Jen. It's I'm constantly saying to my athletes, forget about what says in terms of VO2 max and training readiness and hill. Oh, what's the latest one? What's it say on mine? Hill score. It says I'm an 82.
Brilliant.
What does that mean? What does that mean? There is so much data out there, and I think one of the things that sort of I've been involved in a chat about recently is heart rate zones, and just because let's say you're the top end of your zone 2 is 148, doesn't mean that you go into 149 and all of a sudden you're starting to burn more carbs exponentially more than at 148. It's not an absolute barrier. There's crossover, and we do end up coming back to how did it feel. Somebody goes, "Oh, my heart rate was 149, and it needed to be 148." Like, but how did it feel? Yeah, it felt easy. Well, then it probably did.
Yeah.
It probably was easy.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm. This is going to lead to another question, but I think nowadays, where we are so caught up in technology and we're so caught up in social media and other people's stories and other people's information, I think, and I don't know about you, Jen and Sim, but over the years, do you feel like people's approach to things have the way people approach things around data and information around running has affected, I suppose, their running in general and how they approach it, I suppose, and you personally around, I guess, how's running changed in regards to the writing that you do and the coaching that you do over those last 10 years or so?
I mean, pretty much everyone has a watch now, don't they? And so pretty much everyone who runs, like, it almost feels like it's one of the first things anyone buys. It's like, I'll buy some trainers and spend 500 quid on a watch. It's like, oh. But yeah, so everyone's got all this data, and even if it's just like the sort of health apps on your phone and that you carry around your phone anyway.
But it's a free sport, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. You do, yeah.
It's cheap, it's accessible.
You don't spend any money on running. I think I've remortgaged my house twice to fund my...
Yeah. But yeah, so everyone's got all the data, and like we use Training Peaks when we do when we coach, so the athletes are all, like, it's all linked into their sort of their data and their watches and stuff. So it's all available. And it wasn't long ago that a lot of people, like a few people, would have a watch. Most people would have a stopwatch, effectively. And then 10 years ago, probably very few people would have had a real, like, techie watch. You could get the sort of when the Garmin Forerunners started to come in.
Yeah.
Probably about 10 years ago, but they were like that, weren't they? They were like pretty much carrying a phone on your wrist. And so yeah, it's changed massively from having all that data. And I guess we used to go out for a run and you'd go out for an hour, and now you go out for a run and you go out for 8 miles or 10k or whatever, don't you? And you did it in this much there and stuff. So it gives, I mean, it's nice in a way, because like I like to know how far I've been in the vert and stuff. I'm not that interested in most of the rest of the things my watch tell me. But it is nice to know how far you've been in a week or a month or whatever. So I think
used to write that down, though.
Yeah. Your paper diary. There's a chap who lives close to us. He's a like proper old school runner, and he's always on about his old notebooks and stuff, and he'd go out and his coach would be there with his stopwatch on the side of the tow bar shouting at him.
Nice.
So it's quite different from that. And
I do think there's a danger now with all the feedback you get, and it's often like value laden. It's often you're better or you're worse, or whether that's than you were yesterday, or there's some like Strava, whether you're better or worse than someone else, or or you look on Instagram, you come back from a run really happy, and you look on Instagram and someone's done twice as far and twice as much for it as you have. And I think there's like this constant feedback means it's much happier just to be happy with, it's much harder to just be happy with your run, isn't it? Like you might have a really good run and you come back and you receive some kind of that, you know, this wasn't as good as yesterday's run, or this wasn't as good as you did last year, or like, I don't know, it wasn't as good as somebody else's run. And I think there's a real danger that retrospectively we feel worse about our run than we did when we were doing it. Like almost every time, there's always something, isn't there, that's not quite good enough. And it's like that, the constant comparison with other people and with ourselves all the time. and you know, it's like a competition, like who can sleep the most or who can sleep the least, or like who can, and everything's very extreme because that's how it sells. So you eat this or you eat this or you don't eat this. And yeah, I think everything's got a lot more extreme and a lot more because it sells, doesn't it? And,
yeah, I feel like social media, I'm actually having a little bit of a break from social media at the moment, because I do feel like it has gone very extreme. Yeah. You've got, like, in the nutrition world, you've got, you know, this Eddie Abu, is it, who eats like 12 eggs every morning and with beef liver. And then there's that
I did see that on the yeah. I did see that, and I was like, why?
Yeah. And then in running, it seems we seem to have gone into, everybody wants to be like Nick Bear and get really muscly and run stupid distances. And I feel like it's kind of social media's gotten lost in this world of, like you say, extremities, or feuds is another one. I mean, Jen, you're a USCA certified ultra running coach. A certain principal of USCA was involved in something recently, which I wasn't particularly fond of personally. Yeah. But it just feels a little bit like that at the moment, you know. Yeah. And I think that, you know, when it comes back to people's running, it does make people kind of go to those extremes. It's like, oh, well, you know, so-and-so is eating 12 eggs for their breakfast every day. I'll have 12 eggs for my breakfast every day. Yeah. You don't need 12 eggs for your breakfast every day.
No, but then as an alternative, you should definitely be vegan. Like, you should either have 12 eggs or you should be vegan.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true though. And I think it's such a tricky, and I'm saying that in the politest, simplest term, it's very tricky at the moment because there's so many, like Nick said, extreme views, extreme ideas, you just sometimes have to remove yourself from it, don't you? And think, right, I really like running. I want to keep running, and I perhaps want to get better at running. I want to do this race. I'd like to do that race. And it can be really hard to kind of separate yourself from those factors. But when you take the time to do it, I think you get more out of it. Because as you said, Jen, you're not constantly comparing yourself to whether it's the data, whether it's that you are slower or quicker than someone else, or slower than 5 years ago. You know, it's it does, you do reap the rewards if you give yourself that time in that space, I think.
And all the fads, and like whether that's eating or shoes or like anything, it's like pretty much they're all an extreme of something, and probably almost everyone is better off about in the middle. And like, so if you like all of those things, there might be a couple of people who would benefit from very high protein or super low drop shoes or whatever, but almost everyone doesn't. Like almost everyone, you're going to be better off just being reasonably sort of normal.
Yeah, and you know, I think just kind of, you know, bring us right back to the topic of your book, and I think this is exactly what I loved about your book, is that it kind of goes, oh, well, yeah, I've seen something on, and this is where I would say anybody who's listening, go and buy the book. And I'm not just doing that as a little, you know, kind of a sales pitch for you guys, but go and buy the book. And then when you see something on Instagram and you think, well, that sounds too good to be true. Like, I saw one of these, Jeremy Miller, one of these hybrid fitness influencer type people, saying that if you do a 4x4 minute interval session, you'll increase your VO2 max by 13%. Like, I would give my left arm to improve my VO2 max by 13%.
Like,
Exactly.
That's a good way of
But
saying it.
when you sort of see these kind of sensationalist things, actually, do you know what? Pick up Jen and Sim's book and have a little look and have a read about VO2 max and actually how you can improve it, and actually how little you can improve it, because a lot of VO2 max is actually comes down to genetics. But your book does a really good kind of job, I think, of just putting things into a proper perspective, not this kind of sensationalist, clickbaity kind of stuff that you're going to get on Instagram.
Yeah, hopefully. I've always, well, Sim always, poor Sim knows, I've got quite a highly developed bullshit detector. So as soon as anyone says, "Oh, did you know that?" I'm like, "Really? Where's the evidence? How does that work then?" I'm quite annoying, I think, but it just annoys me so much. And even the feud you were referring to, it's like, I don't know, if you let someone tell you what to eat and you get it in packets and you believe everything that's written on that packet and everything you're told it will do for you, and then you're kind of setting yourself up for that kind of thing. You're putting a lot of trust in other people to put the stuff they say is in. We know that so many sports supplements are contaminated with stuff that isn't on the packet. Almost it's like it's a it's a huge problem, and I don't really want to be eating stuff that I don't know what it is. And if you want so many grams of carbohydrate, whether eating 90 to 100 grams of carbohydrate is right for anyone other than like Robbie Britton, I don't know. but it's kind of working it out for yourself, listening to the balanced arguments, and understanding that just because one person eats this type of energy gel or can smash down 100 grams of carbohydrate an hour or just eats eggs, it's not necessarily for everyone. And there's that again, coming back to trusting yourself and working out what works for you and trial and error and all that kind of thing. And I was listening to your episode with Dr. Rich, can't remember his surname,
Blagrove, yeah.
And I love those, I read a lot of systematic reviews and meta-analyses because it's time effective apart from anything else, isn't it? Rather than having to go through all the individual studies. But at the same time, if you look at the populations, I mainly work with 30 to 40-year-old postpartum women. And, the sports science research on women in general is pretty minimal. And then you look at postpartum women and it's non-existent. So strength training, the benefits of strength training, especially lifting heavy when it comes to women who might have abdominal separation or pelvic floor issues, all these things. It's like, you just can't take even the best research. You can't just take that and assume it fits everyone. You really have to look at what
absolutely.
So, yeah. I don't know where that started, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And this is sort of where I just go back to sometimes, the science can go F itself, because it doesn't apply to everybody, particularly in the sports world. You're right. So many studies are done on 25-year-old, sub-elite male athletes that, some of it just doesn't. It's like the whole, I'm of the opinion that the whole train hard, have your hard days hard and your easy days easy. For the sort of people I work with, 90% of the time, that doesn't work, because doing a strength session and an interval session on the same day is exhausting for some people. And I just end up going, well, let's separate them. So they do, strength training one day, intervals the next day, or vice versa, or usually the other way around. So they've got fresher legs. But, it's exactly that kind of sort of approach I take, is that, we've sometimes got to take the science with a pinch of salt. But having said that, your book, and this is a question I got for you, actually. It's like, how long has it actually taken you to put the book together? I know it's sort of, you probably say, well, it is an accumulation of what we've sort of, done over the last 10 years, but because you cover so many topics, finding all those articles and things to cite, the not articles, the PMIDs and everything, it must have been quite a laborious task.
Yeah, it probably was 3 years of specific work on it. It wasn't meant to be quite that long. vertebrate were very, very patient with us. But yeah, trying to work out, like sitting down in the first place and just trying to work out what should go in it. And Sim loves the nav and the kit and stuff, so he wrote that bit and I wrote most of the sciencey bits, so we kind of shared it out in that way. But yeah, it was a pretty lengthy process, I think.
Yeah,
but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing that, you know, you took that time and you did that. That just shows the time and the attention that went into the book and the value that's in that. And I think that's, you know, maybe the publishers weren't so fond, but in the sense of it was totally worth it in the end, and taking that time to make sure that what you were talking about contained that important information, but again, coming back to making it accessible and usable for people.
It's really hard to know when to stop as well, because you think you've done it and then a new paper comes out and you're like, I've got to put this in, and then something else comes out that's like, no, that's definitely wrong, and you've got to like change that. So at some point you just have to stop and go, this is as good as it can get. And then
that is so hard, isn't it? Like, you think about how research moves, you know, it's changing all the time. Things are being, you know, updated, and that's the thing with writing books, I guess. And, you know, you can never, that, I guess that is the beauty and the frustration of books. They're wonderful because they're in the moment, they're there, you sit down, you read it, but obviously that data has moved on since print, and then something new's out there. But I guess that is the great thing about a book. And in the sense, if we go back to that conversation about social media and things, which is changing on an hourly, minute basis, a book, you can sit down with a coffee, read what you want to read, when you want to read it, at the pace you want to read it. And that's why, you know, it's so great for people.
With things, you know, now you've got the book kind of laid out, and with things like, you know, we've just explained, things do change so quickly, and, you know, one day a new paper might come out that completely kind of change the landscape of one of the things you've written about. But you've got the book now. You know, will you be sort of staying on top of things and then bringing out, you know, second editions, third editions? Is that kind of the plan?
Yeah, I hope so. And I mean, so far there's been loads of really polite, nice feedback, which is good. But we're definitely really keen for, like, if anyone spots something in there they don't agree with, or you know, we're keen to have that feedback too. And yeah, it's something that hopefully they'll let us update every few years so we can keep it as current and relevant as possible.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, yeah, I think that's the thing I love about the book. It is a book that you can read cover to cover, but it's also it is kind of one of those reference books, and I particularly would think for for kind of the everyday runner who might want that sort of fountain of information, particularly if they don't have a coach and they want to ask a question, instead of going on the Facebook groups and asking the masses for their opinions. You know, everybody has an opinion. You know, I think it's a really good place for you to go, oh God, I've got a question about such and such. Right, let's get Smart Running open, and it will invariably answer that question for you. So I congratulate you on a fantastic book. I will continue to use it, you know, to reference back to. So yeah, thank you for coming on. Faye, is there anything sort of you wanted to?
No, I don't think so. I have not finished the book yet. I have only part read it, but so far love it and think it's great. So yeah, well done for putting together a great, informative but accessible book for people.
Thank you very much. That's really nice to hear.
Thank you, and thanks for this.
No,
it's
been fun.
I will put links in the show notes to the book. Best place to get it on Vertebrate's website or Amazon or all of the above.
Either of those. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got the Kindle version. Yeah, nice and easy for me. I always like lying in bed to read me Kindle. It's that kind of book though that it is not very good for me trying to fall asleep, because I'm like, oh. But I always like to ask, where can people find you?
We're at Jen and Sim on Instagram and Twitter, although we don't do much with Twitter. And we're jenandsimbenson.co.uk. There's more about the books and coaching and that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. All right, brilliant. Thank you, Jen and Sim. And as we determined just before the call, you're only down the road, so I'll give you a shout and we'll maybe go for a run.
Yeah,
Be good. Yeah.
Go for a run. I could run to yours.
Yeah, I know. We could run there and back.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cheers, both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks for listening to the Maximum Mileage Running podcast.
You can find more out about us at maximummileagecoaching.com. If you think you need help with your running and you think that either myself or Faye could be the coach for you, then drop us an inquiry. No obligation whatsoever, and we'll have a chat with you about your running. And there's plenty of resources on the website as well. And don't forget, you can join us on the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast Facebook group. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.